Let me ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply, only to realize one day they might not deserve it? Because right now India, a nation of over 1 billion dreams, trusts only one country. But the shocking truth, that trust might be the reason it's both rising and at risk. And today, we're going to uncover why. Trust isn't something that forms out of convenience. It's born from shared challenges, long-term commitments, and the promise of mutual growth. For India, this trust didn't appear overnight. It was molded through decades of cooperation, understanding, and the relentless pursuit of national progress. Every agreement, every handshake with its partner nation symbolized more than diplomacy. It represented survival, ambition, and faith in a global partnership. Over time, India learned that in a world where alliances are often temporary and self-serving, the only way to create stability was through consistent collaboration. This trust began at a time when India was still finding its footing in the modern world. It needed allies, technology, and access to opportunities beyond its borders. And one nation stepped up, not as a savior, but as a strategic companion. They exchanged knowledge, strengthened trade, and built defense systems that became the backbone of India's rise in global stature. Slowly, trust turned into reliance, and reliance became a routine part of India's growth story. Yet, what makes this foundation unique is that it wasn't purely emotional. It was built on necessity. India didn't trust because it wanted to. It trusted because it had to. In a world divided by power and politics, it had to align with someone it believed could help it stand taller. And as years passed, that alignment became a core part of India's foreign identity. The world began to recognize India not just as a developing nation, but as a country capable of forming and maintaining strong, strategic trust. It was a partnership that showed the world India's determination to adapt, evolve, and thrive, proving that trust, when rooted in purpose, can become one of the most powerful tools a nation wields. The world often looks at alliances as political gestures, but for India, the relationship with that one trusted country goes far beyond formal agreements. It's a partnership woven through shared visions, global ambitions, and deep strategic ties. India sees in this nation not just an ally, but a mirror, a country that complements its strengths and compensates for its weaknesses. Together, they have collaborated on technology, defense, and trade, shaping an interdependence that drives innovation and influence. This trust is built on the belief that both nations can rise together, stronger and more resilient against the challenges of an unpredictable world. The depth of this connection becomes clear in moments of crisis. Whether it's a global pandemic, economic uncertainty, or regional tension, India often finds that one nation standing beside it, providing support, partnership, and assurance. This consistency has made the relationship feel unbreakable, almost like a silent pact of progress. For India, it's not merely about convenience. It's about survival and strength in numbers. When one nation's success aligns with another's security, trust transforms into a strategic necessity. But beneath this powerful bond lies a delicate balance. Because no matter how genuine the friendship appears, the truth remains. Every country ultimately protects its own interests first. And that's where the reality of trust becomes complicated. India's reliance on this partner has elevated its global standing, yet it also exposes a vulnerability, the possibility that one day those interests may no longer align. The trust that once empowered India could become a source of hesitation or caution. Still, despite the risks, India continues to believe in the partnership, not blindly, but with the hope that shared progress will outweigh self-interest. That hope keeps the trust alive, pushing both nations toward a future built on ambition rather than obligation. When a nation begins to trust too deeply, it often forgets that trust, while powerful, can also be dangerous. Blind faith breeds comfort, and comfort leads to vulnerability. India's growing reliance on its trusted partner has given it advantages, access to advanced technology, global influence, and a sense of security. But it has also created an invisible chain, one that can tighten when circumstances change. History is full of examples where strong alliances turned into silent traps, where loyalty blinded judgment and dependence weakened independence. When a nation stops questioning the intentions of its allies, it slowly surrenders its control over its own destiny. India's trust was born from collaboration, not weakness, yet over time, familiarity can make even the sharpest minds complacent. When decisions begin to rely on the assumption that the partner will always act in goodwill, the risk becomes real. Because no country, regardless of its promises, prioritizes another's interests above its own. And in the complex chessboard of global politics, even the closest allies can turn into competitors when stakes rise high enough. India therefore stands at a point where it must balance gratitude with vigilance. Blind trust doesn't just limit a nation's options, it limits its imagination. When dependence grows, the drive to innovate internally fades. The mindset shifts from "we can" to "they will help." That subtle change can redefine a country's identity over decades. The real danger lies not in betrayal, but in the erosion of self-sufficiency. India's challenge now is not to abandon trust, but to make it conditional, to ensure it never loses the ability to act alone when needed. Because in global affairs, trust must be earned continuously, not assumed permanently. The strongest alliances are built not on dependence, but on mutual strength and constant awareness. Power in the real world is never given. It is negotiated, earned, and defended. Nations do not share power out of kindness. They share it when it benefits them. India's trusted partner has always understood this rule well. Every promise, every agreement, every gesture of support carries a calculation behind it. That's not betrayal, it's strategy. In global politics, no country operates out of emotion. Each move is designed to strengthen influence, protect interests, and secure long-term advantage. And while India's relationship with this one nation has created immense progress, it's also a reminder that partnerships in power are never truly equal. The shocking truth is that the very country India trusts the most often plays multiple sides. It builds bridges with rivals, signs deals with competitors, and keeps options open to maintain control. To an outsider, this may seem like disloyalty, but in reality, it's how strong nations survive. They balance power by ensuring no one grows too dependent or too dominant. India must understand this truth deeply, that no matter how close an alliance appears, every nation ultimately looks after itself first. This doesn't mean trust is a mistake. It means trust must be managed like a business deal, not a friendship. It requires awareness, boundaries, and the courage to say no when needed. India's greatest strength will come not from being the most trusted ally, but from being the most respected one. Respect comes when a country can offer something valuable on its own terms without begging for approval or protection. In the end, power dynamics don't reward loyalty, they reward leverage. And India's future will depend on its ability to negotiate from a position of independence, ensuring that trust serves its interests, not defines them. Over time, India began to see the world differently. The more it grew, the more it realized that real respect doesn't come from how much you trust others, but from how much you trust yourself. There was a silent awakening taking place, a realization that partnerships are useful, but dependence is dangerous. India started building its own systems, strengthening its industries, and pushing innovation from within. The mindset shifted from "who can help us" to "what can we create ourselves?" That shift marked the beginning of a new chapter, one where confidence replaced caution and capability replaced dependency. In technology, India began developing its own infrastructure, its own digital ecosystem, and its own solutions to global problems. In defense, it started investing in self-made weapons, aircraft, and systems that no longer relied entirely on foreign supply chains. Economically, it opened doors to new partnerships, diversifying trade to avoid being tied to a single source. This wasn't about breaking trust. It was about redefining it. India was no longer seeking validation, it was earning it. This transformation also changed how the world saw India. It was no longer the nation waiting for support. It was the one offering it. The world began to recognize India as a growing powerhouse capable of shaping outcomes rather than reacting to them. The silent realization had become visible progress. India had understood that genuine strength is built in the moments when you decide to stand on your own. Trust, when combined with independence, becomes a weapon of influence rather than a chain of reliance. That's the stage India is entering now, a place where its voice matters not because it echoes someone else's, but because it speaks with its own authority, forged through resilience, strategy, and belief in its own potential. The ultimate lesson India is beginning to embrace is that real power starts with self-trust. For years, it placed its faith in partnerships and alliances, believing that collective strength was the key to security. But now, it's realizing that no alliance can replace the confidence that comes from standing tall on your own. The future will not belong to the nations that depend. It will belong to those that decide their own direction, make their own rules, and carry their own weight. Trusting others can build progress, but trusting yourself builds permanence. India is learning that distinction with clarity and conviction. This new perspective is not about arrogance or isolation. It's about independence. It's about being able to say, we can work with the world, but we can also stand without it. When a country reaches that level of assurance, it stops reacting and starts leading. India's focus on strengthening its military, expanding its economy, and investing in self-reliant industries is proof of this mindset shift. It's building not just capacity but confidence, a belief that the country's destiny lies within its own hands. Self-trust transforms everything. It changes how a nation negotiates, how it responds to crises, and how it positions itself on the world stage. When you no longer fear losing someone's support, you gain true freedom. That's where India is heading, a place where cooperation is a choice, not a necessity. Because when a nation learns to rely on its own strength, it earns the world's respect naturally. The strongest relationships come from equality, not dependency. And as India continues to grow in self-belief, it's not just building a stronger nation. It's building a legacy that shows the world that the greatest trust you can ever place is the trust you build within yourself. In the end, everything comes down to one truth. Trust is powerful, but self-trust is unstoppable. India's journey has never been about depending on others. It's been about learning, adapting, and ultimately realizing that real strength doesn't come from borrowed support. It comes from within. The alliances, the friendships, the shared missions, they all have their place. But the moment a nation believes in its own vision more than anyone else's approval, that's when transformation begins. India stands today at the edge of that transformation, ready to move from being trusted to being trusted by all. So here's the call to action, not just for India, but for every listener watching this right now. Whether you're building a nation, a business, or your own life, never hand over the keys to your destiny. Learn from partnerships, appreciate alliances, but build your foundation on your own strength. Because the world only respects those who refuse to be controlled by it. Stand tall, question everything, and keep growing until you no longer need anyone's permission to succeed. And as we close, remember this: trust others, but never stop trusting yourself first. That's the only way to rise above, the only way to lead, and the only way to leave a legacy that lasts beyond your lifetime. Thank you for being here, for thinking deeper, and for believing in the power of independence. Until next time, stay focused, stay strong, and never forget: the future belongs to those who trust themselves enough to build it.